Good morning, good afternoon everybody, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining. It's been a crazy busy day today, so I feel like I'm a little bit out of breath just running to get back here. I've got everything ready. I want to show you a couple of different things, but primarily we'd like to focus today's session on matting and layering. And it's really interesting because when you first come into the craft industry, you'll hear all these different terms. And I absolutely love it because what we have done is, as crafters, we've developed almost our own language, and that makes it not only very special, but it also makes it really professional. And matting and layering is really the technique of putting two pieces or two shapes together so that you are creating one on top of the other. Now, they're going to have varying different borders, and you can have them where they've got very small borders or they've got slightly larger borders. And I'm going to talk to you about different methods of matting and layering, the effect that you get with them, and it's really more than we can cover in just one session, so I'm going to split this over 2 sessions. But I want to just look at a couple of things that are sort of part of our everyday paper crafting. So first of all, this is just a sheet of toppers that I've literally grabbed off the top of my desk. Oh, by the way, you can see I had a bit of a nail accident, but just the one this week, so that's quite good. And what we've got here is, this is a die cut sheet of toppers. If I turn it over, you can see all the lines where the actual platen has cut. In fact, I'm going to see if one of my colleagues can find me one of the wooden cutting forms with the blades in it, because then I can actually show you what a cutting form actually looks like. So what we've got here then is a piece of card, pre-printed, is placed onto a machine, and then this wooden cutting form actually is placed on the other side of the machine, and mostly these are on machines that are quite old, often reconditioned, but they've been going for donkey's years. And you can have them with a flat arm, or you can also have them with cylinder dies as well. And what happens is, using the pressure of the machine, it takes that die and the wooden cutting form, and it presses over, and the steel line that runs around the edges and creates the shape pushes into it and makes these shapes for us. Now, when we do that, we often do what we've done on this one, which is create some matting and layering for you to see to start with. So you've got a border of this foil that is going around the edge of the design. And the reason that I wanted to show you that is I want you to see the effect that you have when you don't have that border. So here, so I've got one, I've just pushed another one out. I'm just going to take my guillotine and I'm going to trim off this gold foil so that you can see the difference. And in fact, what I'm going to do is, because I can, using my little magic trimmer, I'm just going to trim it, and I'm just going to allow myself a little border, and we can then perhaps use this for something else that we do later on in this session. So I'm going inside, just inside that metallic edge that I've got there, making myself a little tiny border, and I'm then going to be able to use this for a bit more teaching in a few minutes. So I'll take that off. But now, this is the first time that you'll see the difference between a completely plain topper or one that's got a foam mat around it. Now, admittedly, this one is foiled, so that does help the image pop, but it does make a difference. And that difference is what we call matting and layering. So a little bit like taking a picture to the framers. They put different, what they call mats, so they are the layers of card, and then they cut the frame into them. And it actually draws your eye into the detail of the design. So if you look at this one, it's almost like your eye can sort of wanders from side to side. You're not contained in the shape of the rectangle. Whereas with this one, it's much more contained. We're almost creating illusions for ourselves. So that's one of the things that I wanted to do. Also want to talk to you about another way that you create faux mats before we get on to building some actual mats and layers ourselves. And so another way that we can create faux mats is by using pens. And one of the pens that I particularly like to use are Pen Touch calligraphy pens. So the reason that this is a popular choice for me is because it's got a flat nib at the bottom, and because it's going to give us the illusion of a metallic finish because we've got gold. So the first thing that I would normally do with a new pen like this is, when you get them, the fibres of the actual chisel nib are normally white, so you have to prime the pen. And to prime it, if I just take, let me take a piece of card, actually I'll just use this piece. And to prime it, what you do is you actually pump the pen backwards and forwards. And the more you pump it, the more it releases, and in fact, you can get yourself a little puddle. And if you're looking for a puddle to draw with, you can see there, I've created a puddle, and actually it'll even just run a little bit. You can actually then pick that up with a brush and draw with it. But so before you prime your pen, what you do is you take a pair of scissors and you cut yourself a little V into the middle of it. And I'm just going to, all I'm doing, and you can actually see this now, I've snipped a little V in the middle there. And the reason that I've done that is that when I then put this onto the edge of the card and I push it into the V, I've got more chance of it staying in that groove and me getting a perfect line. So even though the card, because of the weight of it, is bending very slightly, I can still get a perfect line. And I would always suggest, don't start right on the very edge, start just in and then slide your pen backwards and forwards and off the edge. So I'm going to rotate it again, put it back into that little recess, and because I'm pushing up against the fibres of the nib, I know that I am always going to get exactly the same width of border that I've got all the way round. And the reason I haven't done the other side is I want you to see the difference. So you can immediately see how this brings it to life and makes it pop. So when I now put this onto my piece of white card, where I've got just a small border round where I'm matting and layering, look at the difference. That little edge of gold has the same effect as putting the edge of gold on the topper, and it just gives it an extra layer. So this clever faux matting and layering really can make a difference. So I'm just going to pop that lid back on the pen. And let's talk about some of the other things that we could do to create a faux frame. We could be using glue here, and we could actually be putting glitter on it. We could also, you could be using a pen and putting a little pattern on there. But traditionally, matting and layering is done using 2 pieces of card. This is just a little bonus, a little trick you can do at home. So I've got a number of different squares already cut out here, and I'm just going to move these out of the way. And some of the other things that I want to talk to you about are how colour really influences the look and feel of what you're creating. So here I've got a stepper card. So I'm going to start off, and I've got everything cut in black and white. Lovely Lily's actually helped me with these. And over the next few weeks, you're going to see a lot more of 2 really, really special people here at iHub. And David and Lily are both hopefully going to be making appearances on Create and Craft. So we've been working with them for months now, getting them ready to be able to introduce them to you, which is really special. But also being able to, and what I'm looking forward to for you to be able to do, is to really feed off their energy and enthusiasm, because they're both young people who've come into the industry and are making this their life goal. So I think you'll really look forward to what we can be achieved. So I've got a white stepper card here, and I've got black and white cardstock. Now, just because it's a white card doesn't mean to say that we can't matte white, because if I lift that and I put it on foam pads, you're still going to get that look and feel of depth. If I swap these over and I change it to a black and white matte, immediately this takes on a different look. But what happens is you now see the frame of the white around the matte and layer that I've created here. So the next part of it is I want to talk about the depth that we put to the mattes and layers, and again the difference that that makes, and also the difference that you get when you have white as your foundation. So the very first layer, the base card, is called our foundation, and black as the foundation. And look at this. With white, it looks fresh and it's looking for you to put something onto the whole of this piece. But with the black, it's a much denser look, and the overall appearance of the card changes completely. And the white frame is already drawing your eye into what's going to be in the centre, where with this, we're still left with a more open space. So colour plays a huge part in matting and layering, as does the height. So when we come to work with dimension, we've got a number of different mediums that we can work with. And one of the sessions, I tell you what I think we really should do is, we should do something on glues, because there is so many different kinds of glues available. I think that could be a really good one for us to do. So I've got a few favourites here. I've got red liner tape. Now, I talk about this all the time. Some people call it super sticky. It is really sticky. It's got a plastic liner. So the liner is the bit that isn't sticky. The liner's the carrier, if you like, for the sticky bit underneath. And then, this is a good way to find the end of it. You just fold over the very tip, and then I can roll back the carrier, and then, whoops, you can roll back the carrier as I've just done there and get hold of the liner. Now, this is also plastic, so it's stretchy. It actually will not tear, but it's also super, super sticky. It's great for creating faux mattes and layers. So I'm going to show you how you would do that. So first of all, I'm going to cut the tape. I'm going to take off the piece that I've spoiled, and I'm going to cut the tape at a diagonal. And I'm going to place that piece. It doesn't take long, does it, before it goes wrong? And place that out the way. I'm going to work on the black, so you'll see it better. So I'm going to decide that I'm going to come in from the edge just a few millimeters. So let's take a look at how far. So I think about there. And I'm going to take this tape and I'm going to place it in a straight line down the piece of cardstock. And you'll notice how it changes colour when you press it down. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim that off, and I'm going to place the other piece over the top so that it catches, it catches the corner, but I'm not pressing it down there. I'm just going to press it down in the middle, and I'm not pressing it down at this end. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lift up the bottom one. So this is why it's really important that you haven't pressed it down. Just get hold of that with my nails. There. And I'm going to cut into that on a diagonal. Now make sure your scissors are sharp, because this is where the tape, because remember we're cutting plastic, it can be quite challenging. So, oops, I've got gold somewhere. Oh, wherever. So now I can push that corner down, and I can press that down like that. So now I'm going to go back to the first way that I was doing it, and I'm going to cut my diagonal, and I'm going to butt this one up. So for me, you've got to choose which of these ways you think you're going to find it easiest to do, whether it's trimming into the corner or it's doing your little diagonal cuts. Choose whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to go back across here. Really just need to lift this side because it's not quite straight. So I'll get hold of that and just pull it back. And you can always, it's quite forgiving before you stick it down, but once it starts to change colour, it isn't as easy to work with. So again, I'm going to come into this corner, so I've got to lift up and cut. And at home, just spend a little bit more time on it, just making it perfect, because mine isn't quite as perfect as I would like it to be. And then again, on this side, I'll lift and just cut into that piece as well. Right, so now you press it down all the way round. What a little piece has just moved, so it's going to move that back. And then let's take off the liner. So slide your pokey tool underneath and you're just lifting off the liner tape. Now, one of the things that I find frustrating about this particular product is it's got a lot of static. So you can use things like tumble dryer wipes, kitchen roll apparently makes a little bit of a difference, but the bottom line is it does stick to things. So that's all of our actual tape, the carrier off, and now I'm going to use some glitter. So I'm going to use this. I don't know whether you remember when Nancy and I used to have glitter stations, and what we used to do was have these great big boxes with tons of glitter in them, and it was our glitter station. Remember, I once tipped mine all over the back of Carl's car. He wasn't best pleased with me. But talking about Nancy, she's got an announcement to make next week, and we've got some news, and it's news that we've had to wait a while to share, but it's the right time now. So I hope you'll join us next week. We're going to do 2 Facebook Lives. One of them is going to be sort of like a news update and a personal message from Nancy, and the other one is going to be us doing our Facebook Lives as we normally do. Right, so what I want you to see now is look at that. So that's a faux matten layer, or some people would like to call it, we framed the design. But then when I then put my white card on, you can see, if I show you at the corner here, it looks like I've got 3 layers. So I've got my black, then my glitter card, and then my white. And in fact, you and I know it is only literally 2 layers of card. So let's look at the next thing, which is where we add this height and dimension. So I'm just going to trim this piece down because it's a little bit large for me to, now I've put the frame on there, for me to get the dimension all the way around. Now, the other thing is worth considering is when we're doing lots of matting and layering, we also can be quite wasteful with our cardstock, especially if it's a special piece of card that you've been saving and you've only got a small amount of it. If that's the case, then we gut the middle of the card, and I'll show you how we do that in a second. So here's the equivalent of doing that faux matte layering all the way around the card. Then we look at the next, go back to the next glues. So we've got the next one that we're going to look at is our finger lift tape. So this one you can tear with your fingers, and what's really clever is that the glue itself only runs down the middle of the actual carrier. So this is the carrier again, the little almost like greaseproof sheet, and then this is like tissue. So it's tissue tape, and it literally will tear. It'll just pull apart, so it's really handy to use. And so the way that this one works, we put it on the back of our cardstock, not when it's not stuck to your fingers, like mine is. So I've got it stuck all over the place. Did I ever tell you that I once stuck myself to the steering wheel when I was doing my nails in the car? That was a bit of actually it was quite a bad one as well, because I was doing my nails and then I got distracted with something. So I put this hand on the steering wheel, and what I didn't realise was the glue that comes underneath here had actually run onto my fingers. So I actually had 2 fingers properly stuck, and it took me about though it took a long time to get them off, and it was sore too, so I wouldn't recommend that one. So anyway, finger lift tape then, straight down, and I like to just tear it. Some people will like the ends of it absolutely perfect, and they use their scissors. You can do that if you choose to, but I'm just, for me, this is just a quick way of working. So take that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this piece of card in half, and half of it we're going to put flat, and half of it we're going to lift on with our foam tape. So I've just got this piece ready, so you can slide your fingers under that loose piece that you've got there, and then lift that off here. Right, had a bit of an accident. I've got to get the tape back on my thumb. Do you know, I bet there are people out there, and I'm sorry if you're one of them watching. Well, if you're watching, you're probably not watching for long. Watching thinking, I've never seen anybody come and do a Facebook Live and then glue up their fingers, tell us stories about all sorts of stuff, and then wonder what on earth is going on. But I actually like it like this because it makes it feel like we're just crafting with friends. So I'm just going to put this one on here, and we'll put this one on flat. Try to get that level. So that's on flat. And then this piece we're going to put on foam. So ignore the fact that I've already got the tape on there. And so I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to go round with my foam. And it really is interesting when you start to see the difference that these kinds of things can make. So I'm going all the way round. Now, if you're matting and layering on a big piece of card, go round the edges. You don't have to then put loads of pieces of tape across it, the middle, because that's more glue than you need, but you do need some pieces for support. So think about where you might have weight on the front of the card and then you need to support it. And it might be that you just need to put an extra few pieces of tape in the middle, because we don't want the middle to sink. So then, got my tape off here, and I'm just going to pop this one on. And it's not, oh, so we got my straight edge there. It isn't perfect at this end on the glitter card, but here you can see we've got a really nice smooth edge. It's butted right up to the edge of the card, and you've got those flat layers. If you look here, it immediately looks different. It sort of almost changes the colour of the glitter a little bit because of the shadow that you've got from this. And then you've got the depth and the dimension that you can see in there. So height changes our mats and layers. I would never recommend, and I personally don't like the look and feel, you might, putting height behind every single layer, because suddenly all you do is you end up with this almost like a pyramid building up, just getting higher and higher and higher, and it then from the side can look quite ugly. You can also get black tape, and if I'm doing dark colours, then I prefer to use the black tape because I think it looks so much nicer from the side, particularly if I'm matting a navy onto another really dark blue. So let's look at some other styles of mats and layers and what they mean when we're paper crafting. So one of the things that I like to do is, and I'd recommend that you do this too, we have a box here at iHub and it's got different sizes of cards in it. And each of the sizes has got the card name written on it. So I've got an A5, I've got a 5x7, a 6.5 by 6.5, a 4.5 by 4.5. I've got a DL. So when I get a topper or I'm planning my mats and layers, I sometimes take these out and then look at the size that it suits best for my matting and layering. So if I were to take, let's pick a couple of them, and just because it's a rectangle doesn't mean to say that I can't use a square card. So I've got, here's my 5x7, oh sorry, my A5, so that would sit perfectly in the centre of the card. It would also look good if it was like, if I turn this around, it looked nicer for you. It would look good if it was slightly higher to the top. I could also move it slightly to one side and then put a border down this edge. If I bring it onto my square card, it automatically lends itself to having something here. Or if I were to put it in the centre, what about running a panel behind this? So a strip that literally would go behind the design. So I've got a few pieces that have already been cut, and I've also got some pieces that are ready to cut. So let's do a little bit of cutting. Now I'm using one of the toppers that's coming up this weekend, and this one is actually on one of my USBs, and I've got a USB that's got all the artwork and all the projects and pieces from 5 collections. I'm just about to make a little change to what I've just decided to do here, because I was cutting it with a slightly white border and then made a change to what I thought I wanted to do. So just checking that I've got a nice sharp edge there and there, and I'm using the guillotine as a guide for how straight I want it. Let's take that piece there. So I've cut myself a couple of faux mats on this topper, so much more interesting than just the plain topper on its own. And then I'm going to choose some cardstock that's going to complement it. So I'll complement it. So I've got some dark pink and light pink, and I've also got a dark burgundy. Now, if you look at this and you look at the colours, oh, that's another one we should do. We definitely should do one on colour as well, because that would be a really good one for you to do. You can see how when I mat and layer this onto the dark shade and I put the lighter shade behind, you're now starting to see this border here, and then I put that onto white, we get one look and feel. But I want to completely change it up. So I'm going to put that onto the white, it changes the look and feel. If I put this onto the darker shade and I make that border wide and that border narrow and a very narrow white border, look at how it changes it. It draws your eye into it. Now these, we're talking here about basic mats and layers, but of course you can do multiple mats on a page. So I'm talking about having a square in the middle with mats and layers, and then another square to the side with mats and layers, and you might even have them overlapping. So I'm going to do a little bit of cutting to get you some of the effects. While I'm doing that, I'm going to tell you about my escapades with my caravanning, because we had so much fun. So I told you about my banana laptop, my iPad, and what happened with that. Well, so it's been evenings of obviously getting the caravan ready to go out, and it's been quite challenging. I've used more of that sticky stuff remover than I ever thought I would need, because I've had to get rid of all the sticky stuff that was on that had been sticking up the curtains and everything else, because they've all come down. And this is too small, so that's going to end up as a border. So check your measurements when you're doing this, because I have just made a mistake. That piece isn't big enough, so I'm going to have to redo it. And what I should have done is what I'm doing here, which is putting the card on first and checking the size. There we go. And so what happened was we got all ready to go and packed everything. I was so pleased with myself. I planned all the dinners and was told don't take lots of excess weight. Well, that's a problem because I put weight on that week. So I had to keep everything light in the caravan. So we did all of that, got everything ready, did everything we're supposed to do. And we didn't go very far. We went up to Home Firth, which is only about an hour and a half from here. Well, blinking good job, because somebody forgot the keys. So we pulled up and started to pull into where we were going to park it. which was a bit of a challenge because remember we haven't done this before. So we'd had a bit of a practice at home, but not a big enough practice. And found out that we'd forgotten the keys. So we're like, right, what can we do? Well, we're going to have to, Carl said, we're just going to have to go back for them. I said, well, why can't we just manage without them? You know, pick the lock or something. So, I don't know, getting through a window. He said, well, because the keys have got the thing on that controls a remote control, which makes it easy for you to move the caravan. I was like, that'll be fine, we can push it. And you try pushing the caravan. It was going in the wrong direction. And we were by a pond. Well, the pond was quite deep and there were lots of ducks in it. The ducks all disappeared. There's Carl shouting at me because apparently I wasn't listening. And so we abandoned that, got in the car and drove home. So we fetched the keys. That wasn't too big a disaster. We were just a little while late. The man at the caravan site was so nice. And of course, everybody was being really COVID friendly. So he was, we got handed an envelope that got our pitch number in it and everything. And so he thought we were going out and he was like, oh, you were quick setting up. And I was like, no, I'm afraid it's abandoned because we've lost the keys. We've got to go and fetch them. So he was fine about that. Then the next part of it was that we got the keys and we got back. So that was good. And the bed was already made up and I planned what we were going to do for dinner and all of that. So that was all fine. That was all good. And so everything seemed like it was going really well. Except we put the awning up and found we were 2 poles short. So the side wouldn't go up properly. So we ended up with the front of it. It got these curvy bits that came down. And that was great, except when the wind caught it a bit, there were 3 curvy bits, 1 in the middle and 2 on the sides. Well, they either all went like that or all went like that. So we couldn't sit in the awning because it kept falling in on us. So Carl tried to do a bit of a DIY job on it. And to be fair to him, he did do quite a good job, but it still kept collapsing. So, and then it started to rain. So that was like, right, inside now, we need to go inside. So it was fine. We had dinner and we had, what did we have? Oh, we had sea bass with tagliatelle, linguine, and a spinach and cream sauce, which was great. We were going to have some garlic bread with it, but we forgot the butter, so there was none of that. Then Carl said, would you like a glass of wine? Well, I never turn wine down, do I? So he said, oh, and I went to watched him. He started to pour some out of this half-filled bottle. I was like, no. He's like, what's the matter? I was like, that's my sauce for tomorrow. So I put the sauce in a wine bottle, and he was pouring out this purpley, browny, reddy sludge. That was actually the sauce I was going to make for the next day. So, so the next day actually went off without too many hitches. And I managed to watch 8 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, plan 2 new flower ranges, and a signature collection. So I was actually really chuffed. And I just need to stop talking for a minute and just show you this. So what I've done here is, I've got, if I hold them, I've got fairly even borders around all of it. But I just want to take out this one and let you see what it does. It completely changes the colour. And suddenly these flowers actually pop more, whereas when I put this behind, the colour and the density of colour is distributed from the border right through to the flowers. And I actually almost don't need that second layer because this actually is enough to do my mats and layers. So I'm going to take that layer out, maximise the potential of the faux layer that I've got here. I'm going to stick these 2 together and then show you what happens when we vary the width of them. So while I'm sticking this together, when it came to packing up, because we stayed Friday and Saturday night, which was great, that was enough time to decide we actually liked it. So I got used to, I was really good. Right from the very beginning, I was like watching which way Carl's going to go. Is he going to go right or is he going to go left? And if he was coming one way, I went the other way because I knew that if I kept treading on him, he would go, we're not coming again. So really good, no rows. It was actually quite good. And we came to pack up, and by then I'm like learning how to do things, and I went to take the water barrel and I emptied it in the right place, and that was all okay. And then we're all packed up, we're all ready to leave, and we start to go, just shutting the doors, and this lady comes running out and she goes, "Your flaps are open, your flaps are open." I'm like, "What's a flap?" Apparently the roof flaps, which are the openings, were all open. Guess who was supposed to shut everything up? That was my job. So Carl had to go back, get in the car, get back in the caravan. I couldn't do it because the steps were inside, so I couldn't fit. So he went in, got the roof, closed all the roof flaps, and that was all fine. So we then get back in the car and go to go. So he puts his foot on the accelerator to drive away, and nothing happened. And he's going, nothing's going. He'd forgotten to take off the thing that actually makes it's like a little motor thing that makes the caravan move all by itself. He'd forgotten to disconnect that, so the caravan had parked its brakes on and was not going anywhere. So he had to get out, open a flap, and get this remote control thing out. And when we'd gone, I bet they're all going, "Yeah, first timers, those two." Anyway, it was making me laugh, because laughing, crying. We were laughing all the way home about what an adventure it'd been. And you know, I loved it so much. We're going again in 2 weeks, and I absolutely had the best time. I took pictures of ducks. I saw a mummy with babies. It was just fabulous. So definitely going again. Right, so let's have a look at this. Oh, so I'm really looking for anybody who has got recommendations for campsites that are really quiet. So, you know, a little bit in the wilderness, then I'm definitely up for it. Thank you. Right, so look what happens. Mats and layers. So only one layer, a little bit of foam and a border behind it. Let's take this over to the side and take my panel. And what I'm doing now is I'm using this to divide up the white space. So again, mats and layers, but dividing up the white space. I'm going to come onto my A5 card, put my square panel on, and look again. Just break up and divide up that white space. It makes such a difference. So what we've done here is, we've literally, I've got black eyes, haven't I? What we've done is we've looked at the basics. What happens when you put height on things? What happens when you don't? How to actually lift it off the canvas, the foundation, to get some depth and dimension to it. And what I'll do next time is we'll take this to the next level. So we'll do a little bit more about matting and layering. Remembering next week we're going to do 2 sessions. So one of them is going to be a couple of special messages that we need to give you. And then we'll also do some of this, and we will do a little bit about a new paper kit that we've got coming up, so I'll tell you a bit more about that. In the meantime, thank you everybody, as always, for your time wherever you are in the world, and don't forget to watch out for David and also for Lily, because you will be seeing those. And I'm like a proud mother duck with my ducklings. It's fabulous. And thank you once again for your time.